What it do, Durag Nation? Even though we've been blessed with some classic superhero games and have some incredible ones releasing in the near future, we missed out on potentially some of the best superhero games ever because they were canceled before fans got to play them due to various development problems or greedy executives who can't even hold a controller. So today I wanted to break down 5 canceled superhero games ranked both in terms of potential and how likely we'll see a studio try to bring it back or make something similar. First, Hulk smash that like button to share with another superhero fan, and let's get it. Coming in at number 5 is Project Sabbath from WB Games Montreal. Don't worry, you'll be seeing this studio again on this list. After releasing the successful Batman Arkham Origins between 2016 and 2019, the studio began development on a new game that would send players back to Gotham. But instead of another Arkham clone, this one tried to do something interesting, which is why it made the list, even though I have Batman fatigue. Project Sabbath existed in its own universe, separate from Arkham, and featured an older Bruce Wayne who had a harness on his leg and a walking stick. It was basically the setup for Batman Beyond, except players would have taken on the role of his successor, Damian Wayne, Bruce's son and former Robin, who took on the mantle of Batman. Concept art for the game was released online, revealing a more futuristic Gotham, once again giving those Batman Beyond vibes. We also got to see the Bat Cycle and Damian's Batman suit. Project Sabbath would have included appearances from Killer Croc and Huntress as well. Famous voice actor Josh Keaton revealed he was going to be the voice of Damian Wayne, but the project was canceled after he'd only recorded 3 or 4 sessions. The studio would eventually pivot to Gotham Knights, which didn't go according to plan. No chance WB Games Montreal revisit this game because their next DC project is going in a totally different direction. But Rocksteady has a new Batman game in development, and it's very possible they borrow from Project Sabbath and set the game in the future after the events of Arkham Knight. Next, we have to talk about what sounded like a potentially classic game that was canceled earlier this year. And you know it's been rough for superhero games when that description can apply to more than one project. But at number 4, I decided on Black Panther by Cliffhanger Games. Back in 2022, EA announced an exciting 3-game deal with Marvel to produce new superhero games. And the first 2 they announced were a single-player game for Iron Man, developed by Dead Space remake creator Motive Studios, and a single-player Black Panther game from a new studio called Cliffhanger Games. Cliffhanger was started by former top devs from Monolith Productions, the creators of the Middle-earth games and the revolutionary Nemesis system. Nemesis was an incredible gameplay mechanic where enemies would have unique names, abilities, and personalities based on the actions of the player. They would remember your fights, develop rivalries. It was a brilliant system, so of course Warner Bros. Put a patent on it and never used it again. But according to a behind-the-scenes article from Bloomberg and Jason Schreier, Cliffhanger was building their own version of the Nemesis system for Black Panther. The game would give you the option of playing either T'Challa, Shuri, Killmonger, or T'Challa's son Azuri during a power struggle to determine who would be the next Black Panther. At the same time, Wakanda was also attacked by the shape-shifting aliens known as the Skrulls. So you also had to save Wakanda from the invasion while trying to figure out who was a friend or a secret alien. Beautiful concept art for the game was released online not long after the game was canceled and the studio was shut down. Some people spread a debunked theory that the reason for the cancellation was because of a fake story about the lead developer on the project discriminating against people in their hiring. But the actual reason, unsurprisingly, was money. The game spent 4 years just in pre-production due to the challenges of both starting a new studio from scratch and creating a Nemesis system for the game. Despite initially being approved for more funding, it appears as if EA CEO Andrew Wilson, the king of loot boxes, may have ordered the game to be shut down in order to save money after EA didn't hit their revenue goals with their casino sports games. The most tragic thing about this story is the devs left Warner Bros. To make Black Panther after their original Nemesis system game was canceled, leaving the rest of the studio to quickly pivot to a Wonder Woman game that would have also used the Nemesis system. But that got canceled this year too, and the studio was also shut down. WB has control over that patent until 2036, so we'll probably never see this version of the Nemesis system again. Fortunately, Marvel fans will have the chance to experience Black Panther in next year's action-adventure game, 1943 Rise of Hydra. If that game is a hit, it's possible EA may look to revisit Black Panther, since they still confirmed they intend to produce 3 total Marvel games. At number 3, as promised, we're going right back to WB Games Montreal for a superhero game that would have featured one of my all-time favorite characters, Constantine. Back before James Gunn took over DC, WB Games was run by David Haddad, a person who barely understood how video games even worked. And one of the games he canceled was based on Constantine. The cursed, magic-wielding demon hunter gained mainstream popularity when he was played by Keanu Reeves in a movie, and he would later get his own show and a recurring role in CW's Arrowverse. This would have been a single-player game starring John Constantine, but the game didn't get very far before being canceled. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, WB execs didn't think Constantine was a big enough name, so they didn't think people would buy it, which is exactly the kind of out-of-touch and backwards thinking that led to WB's gaming division losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Based on the current DCU, it's unlikely any of WB's upcoming games will include Constantine, which is an L in my opinion. Surprisingly, WB didn't mess up number 2 on this list, but greedy executives are still to blame. One of the reasons we haven't had a Superman game in so long is because they keep getting canceled, but the one with the most potential was Project Blue Steel. This game was in development at Factor 5, but shut down because it, unfortunately, started development during the 2008 financial crisis, which resulted in both the studio and publisher going under. Lead designer Salvatrex made a Twitter thread a while back explaining what happened to the game while showing off concept art and gameplay. This would have been a single-player Superman game heavily inspired by the huge citywide brawls you'd see in the comics and Justice League Unlimited cartoon, with destructible environments in a big city to explore. Rather than rely on the kryptonite mechanic, the game would have focused on enemies that are strong enough to give Superman a challenge on their own, like Doomsday, Darkseid, and Livewire. This game looked much better even in the prototype stage than the movie tie-in Superman Returns, which I still had a lot of fun with. But fortunately, fans won't be waiting forever to get the Superman experience. In addition to next year's highly anticipated Undefeated Genesis, an open world sequel to the indie Superman simulator from 2019, James Gunn has teased multiple new DC projects in development and even confirmed he was looking to have his DCU Superman, David Cornsweet, appear in a video game. So there is plenty of hope. And I can also say the same for number 1 on this list, The Flash. There is more than one canceled Flash game, but I'm looking at the one from WB Games Montreal. This was one of 4 superhero games they canceled before deciding on Gotham Knights, and it's the one that hurt me the most because I'm a much bigger fan of The Flash than Superman. After previously canceling their Constantine game because the character wasn't popular enough, WB executives allowed the studio to start development on a game based on Barry Allen. But as revealed by Bloomberg, this game was also canceled, but for an even more ridiculous reason than Constantine. Because Ezra Miller's Flash movie was a disaster at the box office, WB executives somehow thought people not wanting to see a trash movie with CGI bad enough to put adults in therapy meant DC fans wouldn't want to play a video game starring one of the most popular superheroes in the world, who also had a really successful TV show that lasted 9 seasons, despite having CW writers. Fortunately, there is a chance we get to see The Flash in WB Games Montreal's new project. They are confirmed to have a new DC game in development under new leadership, but this one does not appear to be single player. Click the video on screen to learn more. And a huge shout out to everyone supporting me on Patreon.